Have you ever felt alone in your beliefs, facing a multitude of opposing opinions? Imagine being in a situation where everyone around you seems to believe in something that goes against your values. The story of Elijah, standing firm against the prophets of Baal, is a powerful example of unwavering resilience and faith. In this video, we will explore how he maintained his confidence in God, even when it seemed the whole world was against him. Are you ready to discover the secret to staying strong in the face of adversity? Join us and learn how to develop a faith as solid as a rock and resist external pressures by finding strength in divine promises. Elijah lived in a time of great spiritual corruption in Israel. The people, under the influence of wicked leaders like King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, had turned away from God and adopted the worship of pagan gods like Baal. The scene was bleak for those seeking to remain faithful to the Lord, as idolatry was deeply rooted in the culture and practices of the people. Elijah's position was lonely and dangerous because he was one of the few who publicly opposed this false worship. The prophet saw God's people, who were supposed to be a light to the nations, giving themselves to the deceptions and false promises of Baal. In this environment, Elijah had to remain steadfast, even when it seemed everyone around him was heading in the opposite direction. He knew his mission was to call the people back to the true God, and that determination was what sustained him, despite threats and persecution. Standing firm in his faith did not prevent Elijah from feeling the weight of loneliness. He knew that his mission placed him in direct opposition to the majority of the people and their leaders. In many moments, Elijah seemed to be the only one in all of Israel who did not bow to Baal, which created a deep sense of isolation. This feeling was exacerbated by Jezebel's active persecution, who had ordered the death of all the prophets of the Lord, leaving Elijah as one of the last to resist. In a memorable episode, Elijah fled to the desert, feeling discouraged and exhausted, both physically and emotionally. There, he prayed for death, so great was his anguish. But even in this moment of extreme weakness, God sent an angel to care for him, showing that, even in solitude, Elijah was never truly alone. This divine care revitalized his strength and spirit. Elijah's experience in the desert reminds us that even the strongest can feel the weight of loneliness and despair. He saw himself as a solitary soldier in a spiritual war, and that burden was heavy. However, his story is also a powerful reminder that God never abandons his own, even when we feel alone in the world. Beyond his physical isolation, Elijah also faced spiritual isolation. He was a voice crying in the wilderness, trying to reconnect the people with the true God. Often, he may have felt that his efforts were in vain, but he never gave up. Even when everything seemed lost, Elijah maintained his faith, a faith that sustained and kept him moving forward, despite all obstacles. Elijah's story is a lesson in perseverance and resilience. It teaches us that although we may feel isolated in our beliefs or spiritual journey, God is always with us. He provides what we need to continue, even in the darkest and loneliest moments. Elijah was a living example of how faith can be a firm anchor in times of adversity. The most iconic moment of Elijah's journey occurred on Mount Carmel, where he directly challenged the prophets of Baal. With the nation of Israel watching, Elijah proposed a test to prove who was the true God. He suggested that each side prepare an altar and offer a sacrifice, but without lighting the fire. The God who responded by sending fire from heaven would be recognized as the only true God. This challenge was a bold demonstration of faith, as Elijah knew that the Lord would not leave him ashamed before all the people. While the prophets of Baal desperately called upon their deity, spending the whole day shouting and cutting themselves, Elijah remained calm and confident. He even mocked their efforts, suggesting that perhaps Baal was sleeping or traveling. Despite the noise and insistence of the prophets of Baal, there was no response. It was a clear demonstration of the impotence of false gods before the true God. When it was Elijah's turn, he did something that seemed even more challenging. He ordered the altar to be drenched with water, making it impossible to light a fire naturally. Then, he prayed to the Lord, asking that he show the people that he was the God of Israel. And then, a powerful fire descended from heaven, consuming not only the sacrifice but also the altar, the stones, and even the water around. It was an impressive spectacle that left everyone astonished. The event on Mount Carmel was a turning point for the people of Israel. They fell to their knees, acknowledging that the Lord is God. The Lord is God. 1 Kings 18 verse 39. Through this undeniable demonstration of power, God reaffirmed his sovereignty and reminded the people of his covenant. Elijah, with his unwavering faith, became the instrument for this revelation. This episode was not just a victory for Elijah over the prophets of Baal, but a reaffirmation of God's power and presence. It shows that, even when all seems lost, confidence in God can bring great victories. For Elijah, it was the ultimate proof that he was not alone and that his mission was blessed by God. Now that you know the incredible story of Elijah and his unwavering faith, it's time to reflect on what it means for us today. If this journey has inspired you and you want to learn more about how to keep your faith strong in the face of adversity, subscribe to our channel Divine Prosperity. Here, we explore powerful Bible stories and how they can transform our lives. Don't forget to leave your like and share this video with someone who needs a word of encouragement. And if you want to continue this journey of knowledge and spiritual growth, we have many other videos you'll love to watch. Let's strengthen our faith and walk with God together. God's response to Elijah's challenge was powerful and undeniable. When Elijah prayed on Mount Carmel, he asked the Lord to demonstrate his power so that the people would know he was the only true God. God responded with a heavenly fire that not only consumed the sacrifice but also the altar, the stones, and the water around. This divine manifestation was so impressive that all present bowed down and acknowledged the Lord's sovereignty. The people's reaction was immediate. They fell with their faces to the ground, exclaiming, "The Lord is God! The Lord is God!" 1 Kings 18 verse 39. This response was not just a momentary confession but a spiritual turnaround for many who had lost themselves in the worship of Baal. The evidence of God's presence was clear and undeniable. The fire that came down from heaven represented not only God's response but also his holiness and his power to purify and renew. After this demonstration, Elijah didn't stop there. He ordered the prophets of Baal to be captured and executed, according to Israel's law for false prophets. This act, though severe, was necessary to eliminate the corrupt and evil influence that had led the people away from God. It was a purification not just symbolic but literal of the sin that had infiltrated the nation. God's response also brought rain to the dry land, ending a long drought that had plagued Israel. Elijah, trusting in God's promise, went up to Mount Carmel to pray for rain. 7 times he sent his servant to check the horizon, and finally, a small cloud appeared. This small cloud quickly turned into a great storm, bringing the long-awaited rain. Elijah's faith was rewarded, and the land rejoiced with the blessing of rain. This moment marked a renewal of the covenant between God and Israel. It was a powerful reminder that when people turn to God, He is faithful to respond and restore. God's response on Mount Carmel is an eternal testimony that He hears the prayers of His faithful and is always ready to demonstrate His power and mercy. Elijah's story teaches us many valuable lessons about resilience, especially in times of great challenges. First, we see that true resilience comes from unwavering faith in God. Elijah faced an entire nation that had turned to idolatry, and yet he remained steadfast in his mission. His confidence was not in his abilities but in the certainty that God was with him, guiding and sustaining every step. Another important point is the ability to stay firm even when everything seems to be against you. Elijah was just one man against hundreds of prophets of Baal and a population that had turned away from God. However, he did not let himself be intimidated by the majority, showing that resilience often means standing firm in your convictions, even when it means standing alone. He is a living example that spiritual strength can keep us firm, even amid great adversities. Elijah's resilience is also evident in his willingness to continue fighting for the truth, even when victory seems distant. On Mount Carmel, while the prophets of Baal cried out for hours, Elijah patiently waited for the right moment to act. He not only believed that God would answer but was willing to persist until it happened. This determination is a crucial trait for anyone who wants to develop true resilience. Furthermore, Elijah showed that resilience includes the ability to rise after moments of weakness and discouragement. Even after experiencing God's power on Mount Carmel, he fled to the desert, feeling alone and discouraged. However, he did not remain in this state. With God's help, Elijah regained his strength and continued his mission. This teaches us that feeling weak or discouraged is not the end but a part of the journey where we can find renewal and strength in God. Finally, Elijah's story reminds us that resilience is rewarded. Despite the challenges and opposition, Elijah saw God's hand move powerfully. His faith and perseverance were not in vain. He witnessed the people's return to God and the restoration of rain in the land. It is proof that when we are resilient and trust in God, He is faithful to fulfill His promises and bring victories that go beyond what we can imagine. Elijah's story and resilience are not just ancient tales, they are rich sources of lessons that we can apply in our daily lives. Firstly, they encourage us to keep our faith strong, even when we face challenges and pressures. In a world where we often feel pressured to conform, remembering Elijah's stance can help us uphold our convictions and values, trusting that God supports us in our journey. Moreover, Elijah's example shows us the importance of being persistent and not giving up, even when results seem slow. Whether in studies, work, or spiritual life, it's common to encounter obstacles that test our patience and faith. Elijah patiently waited for God's response, demonstrating that perseverance is key. We can apply this by setting clear goals and working consistently, even when immediate results are not visible. Another aspect is the importance of seeking spiritual and emotional renewal. Elijah experienced moments of discouragement and exhaustion, but he retreated to a quiet place where he could regain his strength with God's help. We too need these moments of pause to reconnect with our motivations and values. Whether through prayer, meditation, or simple rest, taking care of our mental and spiritual health is essential for staying strong. Elijah's courage to stand against idolatry and injustice is also a call for us to be agents of change in our communities. Often, we may feel small in the face of the world's big problems, but, like Elijah, each of us can make a difference. Defending the truth, supporting the oppressed, and seeking justice are practical ways to live out our faith and positively influence our surroundings. Finally, Elijah's story reminds us that God is always with us, even in the most challenging times. The assurance of divine presence can give us the strength needed to face any situation. Regardless of the circumstances, knowing that we are not alone can bring peace and confidence to continue our journey. Thus, we can live with hope and joy, knowing that just as God was faithful to Elijah, He will also be faithful to us.